Nigeria's aviation sector takes steps to enhance commerce and trade relations. Oil prices stable after the European Central Bank slowed interest rate hikes as demand concerns linger. Plus, drought in Spain pushes olive oil prices to a 26-year high. As Business Express focuses on commodity supply chain disruptions. This is Business Express on the network service of the NTA, and we are reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Benny Adams, your guide. It's time to talk business in the marketplace. I will start by telling you that the House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts has invited the Chairman, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, the Director General, Department of State Services, and the Head of the Civil Service of the Federation over issues surrounding the appointment of the new Auditor General of the Federation. Dayo Ogunsala has the details.
The Director Audit, overseeing the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation, is before the House Committee on Public Accounts to speak to non-rendition of annual reports of 3 years before the National Assembly.
If you don't have the Auditor General's report, the actors who ran the ministry, some of them are retired. Some of them have even died. So how would you, of what value is the report?
Armed with one of the drafts for the years in question, the director says he does not have the power to sign such reports.
Because I'm Director of Audit Overseeing. But if I'm giving my acting letter as the Acting Auditor General for the Federation, I'll be able to sign and submit to you.
Other issue considered by the committee was the alleged fake security clearance reports trailing the appointment of a substantive Auditor General.
We did accreditation. After the accreditation, all those that had passed through the accreditation process were now sent to the security agencies for the screening.
That the chairman availed us all these security reports and other relative documents in tandem with what his presentation I so second.
So our ruling on that is that the DGSSS, EFCC, ICPC, they should come here and tender their report and tell us detailed of service and SGF.
The committee is to reconvene next week. From the National Assembly, Dayo Ogunsala.
Oil prices were stable Friday after the European Central Bank decided on Thursday to slow interest rate hikes, but were unable to claw back much of this week's more than a 9% decline as demand concerns in major consuming countries weighed. Brent futures were up 9 cents to $72.42 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude fell 13 cents to $68.47. The European Central Bank eased the pace of its interest rate hikes and kept its options open on future moves as it fights stubbornly high Eurozone inflation. And still on commodities, a prolonged drought in Spain pushes olive oil prices to a 26-year high. Let's see prices of the global commodities market. Now to the conversation of the day. The COVID-19 affected global markets and commodities, after which came the war in Russia and Ukraine, which are major commodity producers. And disruptions have affected global supplies of essential commodities, driving up prices, slowing trade and lowering incomes. And now the recent war in Sudan, which is ongoing. How would that affect the supply chain, and how can businesses brace for the impact? Our guest is on the program. We'll be given answers to these questions and more. He is Soji Apampa, who joins us from Kigali in Rwanda. Mr. Apampa, you're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you for having me.
First, it was COVID-19, then the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war. The global supply disruptions abating or still unabated? What should we be looking out for?
Well, let's start from what was even disrupted. We know that logistics and transportation channels were disrupted. We know that there were shutdowns in manufacturing because of fears of spreading COVID. We had problems with access to raw materials. In fact, a lot of sub-processing already took place in China. We know China had lockdowns. And there were all changes in preferences, the result of COVID. So many things caused the disruption. But since COVID, some things have improved. For example, there was improved access to raw materials. Manufacturing began again. Supply chains, people started to look for alternatives that are more local and not to be so dependent on China for a lot of their parts and things like that. But some things stayed with us, like a preference to order things online, a preference, so the demand for logistics and transportation increased as a result of COVID. So when the Ukraine-Russia war came, both of them being very crucial for oil and gas products that Russia and Ukraine for grains and cereals, it was a big disruption. And also transportation in the Black Sea area was also disrupted. So global shipping was disrupted, which disrupted also flow of oil and some food items. So yes, the Ukraine-Russia war exacerbated it. So things that could have recovered before, it was a major setback.
Well, you still agree with me that not just Africa, but the rest of the world is still suffering from the impact of that. Then while we are still trying to see how we'll get our way through that, we have the war in Sudan, possibly to affect oil supply, particularly in Africa. What other things do you think will be affected in terms of commodities by this war in Sudan?
Well, Sudan is important for things cotton and sesame, but perhaps most important is gum arabic. Gum arabic is used in so many industries. It's used in the food and beverage industry. It is used in the pharmaceutical industry. It's used in the cosmetic industry. It's used in printing, in arts and crafts. In fact, so that gum arabic is probably going to be what gives the biggest impact on the rest of us in Africa, how we're going to feel the impact of the war in Sudan. So some of these commodities, the prices might have to go up because as businesses look for other sources for those materials and change their supply routes and so on, the prices are going to go up.
Look at Nigeria in this whole mix. When the Russia-Ukraine war came about, we looked at the missed opportunities we're supposed to have keyed into, considering the shortages that the war has caused. Now with the Sudan issues, where do you think Nigeria can come in as area of strength to cash in into some of these opportunities?
Well, we did say we were starting a cotton program some years ago. I don't know what happened to our cotton program. If we had gotten our cotton program off the ground, we would simply have substituted for the shortage globally and started to export to the countries that require it. But I don't think we used that period very well. Nigeria also has a lot of sesame. So if there's a shortage of sesame from Sudan, why are we not filling that space? You will find a lot of the problems that Nigeria has with its commodities has to do compliance with export quality, packaging, meeting requirements of many areas. I hear, for instance, that we were supposed to come up now for our groundnuts to be considered for inclusion again for importation into the EU, but I think we failed that again because we cannot assure that there will be no aflatoxins in our peanuts. Meanwhile, in the Gambia, they've gotten that right for how many decades? It's not rocket science. So I don't think that both leadership and business, we have sat down together well enough to discuss the opportunities and what we must do as a concerted effort to position Nigeria in a way to take advantage of these crises.
Having said that, the IMF recently predicted lower commodity prices and global inflation to fall to about 7% in 2023. Do you see lower commodity prices in Nigeria? Where do you see our commodity market and its value?
You know, for Nigeria, there were some self-inflicted wounds. So we can argue till tomorrow about whether or not the cashless policy, the way we implemented it, whether it was good or not good, we can argue about that. But let's look at the impact and the effect. The impact and the effect was that even those who did not transact with cash before started looking for cash. Everybody, and the prices started to go up. Some commodities came down temporarily. So, for example, maize, you could buy it because people were looking for cash. Any cash that you had, you could. That's why commodities had price. The price transfer, price with cash, and then the local prices. Things were very, very difficult then, and it hasn't totally recovered. But the prices have started to go up again. So yes, temporarily we saw a crashing of prices, but that was because people were willing to sell at any price to survive. But as now that situation has been ameliorated somewhat, the prices have started to climb again. So I don't think we have seen those lower prices. In fact, people should brace for more difficult times. We know even local rice. Look at the way the price of local rice almost doubled around the end of the fast. So we know that these commodities, even the ones produced in Nigeria, the prices went up, not down at the end of the day.
Talking about bracing up for difficult times ahead, what should companies and businesses in Nigeria be doing to improve the supply value chain to possibly, like, ultimately affect consumers?
For us as a country, right across, is we need to produce more. We need to produce more. Our security situation meant that a lot of farmers did not produce last season. And now I don't know if it has improved enough for more to go to the farms, but it will be a major crisis if we don't produce more. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we should look for alternatives to imported materials that are local. We should incorporate more of that into our value chains and in the creation of our products. Because if we don't find alternatives long term, we're going to be vulnerable to these global shocks. So what people do at the time is also to stockpile and hoard. You can stockpile and hoard only for so long. And how much money do you actually have that you are willing to tie down? So long term, that's not the solution. The solution is to produce more and also to incorporate local materials into your production. And that really is how to build some resilience from these shocks.
Thank you very much, Soji Apampa, for finding time all the way from Kigali to get to contribute or offer your own contributions and advice at this point in time. The Minister for Power, Abubakar Aliyu, says electricity is substantially subsidized in Nigeria, with it being the cheapest among African countries. He stated this at an interactive session involving the Senate Committee on Power and agencies under the ministry. Ignatius Nko has details.
It has been a routine for the Senate Committee on Power to intermittently engage officials of the Ministry of Power and agencies under its purview to brief it on the power sector. At this session, Minister of Power Abubakar Aliyu presented a comparative analysis of the cost of electricity in Nigeria and other African countries, which he described as one of the cheapest.
A little cost comparison of electricity in Nigeria and this West African sub-region. We have in Nigeria just 15 cents per unit, which compared to Burkina Faso is 27 cents. Senegal 28 compared to Nigeria 15. 25 in Mali, 25 in Benin, 23 cents in Niger, 42 cents in Guinea-Bissau. Nigeria only 15 cents.
The default in the payment of electricity tariff by many consumers came to the fore. This non-compliance with payment of electricity tariff as and when due led to the disconnection of electricity distribution companies in Kaduna and Kano State from the national grid.
Because electricity is a very sensitive item, and once that happens, people become very agitated. So it is important for you people to be proactive.
The discourse are complaining bitterly that government and governmental agencies are not paying their bills.
The committee was of the view that the best solution to this default in payment is to adopt the method of deductions from source, especially for government-owned establishments. Ignatius Nko.
And the Nigerian aviation industry is receiving a boost as part of deliberate measures to enhance commerce and trade relations. This came to the fore during the inauguration of the expansion work at the Umaru Musa Yar'Adua Airport in Katsina. Tope Alabi reports.
Katsina is a major collecting point for peanuts or groundnuts and for hides and skins that are sent to Kano and other areas for exports. Katsina State has been tested to be highly fertile in mass production of cash and food crops, serving as a hub for fostering gainful trade relations amongst countries. This is challenging government to step in with an investment of 23.7 billion naira to expand existing facilities at the Umaru Musa Yar'Adua International Airport for enhanced trade relations. The project, expected to cover new terminal and cargo within the space of additional security reinforcement strategy, would be completed by the incoming government.
We have the funding more than 70%. That is number one. Number two, like we said, in the case of the fire truck center, all the equipment are being imported. It's only the building, and the money for the building is available. So what will stop it? And by the way, don't forget, it is His Excellency Asuwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu that is coming as the president. And you know his relationship with the president of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari. Not only that, he's not the kind of man that would abandon something that is beneficial for people.
It's one in history, and it will remain indelible in the endless history of Kaduna State. We thank you very much, and we are proud of you as a son of Kaduna State.
The work hopes to open new vista for improved domestic economic activities and promote foreign ties that will strengthen commitment towards achieving excellence in one of the nation's diplomatic zones. From Katsina, Tokbe Alabi, NTA News.
Thank you, Tokbe there. Nigerian equities sustained gains Friday as investor confidence remains in the market, with banking stocks the most sought after. At the close of business this Friday, the all-share index climbed to 52,466.52 basis points. Total volume of trades stood at 482 million, valued at 5.641 billion naira in 5,298 deals. Equity capitalization ended the session at 28.568 trillion naira. Access Bank, United Bank for Africa, Fidelity Bank topped the activity chart. And taking a look at the global market, European markets are set to lose steam ahead of European Central Bank rate decision. Bosere Abel has an update.
Asia-Pacific markets were mixed this Friday as banking fears were reignited on Wall Street, sending the three major U.S. indices into a four-day loser streak. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index rose 0.5%, leading gains in the region. The Shanghai Composite slipped by 0.48% to close at 3,334.5, while markets in Japan were closed for a holiday. Stocks climbed in the European region as investors continued to assess the trajectory of monetary policy. The DAX gained 0.76%. UK's FTSE rose 0.47% and the French CAC advanced 0.46%. US stock futures also rose in early trade after technology giant Apple posted its latest quarterly figures and investors looked ahead to the release of fresh US jobs data. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 0.42%, while S&P 500 futures topped 0.5% along with Nasdaq 100 futures. In Africa, stocks traded in mixed territory. Namibia's overall index led gains in early trade at 1.65%, followed by the JSE Africa Top 40, which rose 1.02%, while the tune index in Tunisia was the relative underperformer.
742 naira to a dollar at the black market on Thursday. Before we go, let's look at the official exchange rate of the naira this Friday. Perhaps Business Express for the week. Remember to send in your comments, observations, and suggestions. Also be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on the NTA's channel. Business Express returns next week, Monday, 3 p.m. precisely. I am Benny Adams saying, enjoy your weekend.